Melisa Idris, and you're watching The Future is Female, the show where we find the extraordinary in every woman. Tonight on the show, my guest tonight is a woman championing inclusive education, the fact that every child has the right to quality education and learning. And Sivanathan wears many hats. She is a special needs educator, the founder of the Inclusive Outdoor Classroom, a community-based project that encourages inclusion where special needs children and typically developing children play and learn together. She is also a committee member with the National Association of Early Childhood Care and Education Malaysia, also Assistant Secretary for the National Association of Autism Malaysia. Many hats that she wears today, and it's a pleasure to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
All right, okay, so I do want to focus right off the bat on inclusive education. What does that mean for those who may not be so familiar with what this entails? Why is it important to ensure that education is inclusive?
It's important to ensure that education is inclusive. It's because we all are different learners. So, you can only imagine if just because we learn in a particular way and we have to be put in a different classroom because we learn in that particular manner. So it's good to be in a classroom, or it's good to be in a space where different learners are, so it becomes inclusive, so that we can learn from someone who learns differently from us, or that person who learns differently can learn from us.
What about the thinking that, to stream the different learners into different kind of speeds? So you categorize children based on how they learn and the speed to which they learn, so that you can kind of tailor that. If you have everyone in a classroom that learns at different speeds in different ways, would that mean that some get left behind as others progress faster?
Well, there are two ways of looking at it. So if you were in a classroom where you all are at the same speed, how does the teacher gauge how far can you go, or at what speed am I going to stop you? And if you're learning in a different, in an environment where everyone's learning differently, it goes back to the teacher training, because a teacher is meant to be trained to teach every student. So for me personally, I like to be in a space, I like to teach in a space where they're all different learners. So, sometimes children develop better by looking at their peers. And so, learning just becomes automatic for them.
Okay, all right. So I want to delve a little deeper into the teacher training, because I think that's very important when we're talking about inclusive education. But I want to touch first on the Inclusive Outdoor Classroom, which is a project that you founded. I think that was back in 2016. So it's been a few years now. Tell me a little bit about why this initiative was started.
Okay, this initiative was started because of its root cause that happened in 2001. I was actually managing a preschool that I founded, and it was an inclusive preschool, and my two daughters were in that preschool as well, learning alongside with the special needs children. And so years went by, and so I left the preschool industry and I went into teaching in universities. And so as I was teaching in the universities, I realized that the adult learners did not quite understand the true meaning of inclusive education. So there was a need, and it was very pressing that I need to do something, but I just didn't know what to do. So yeah, so So
you knew you had to do something, not sure quite what. And so how did you come up with the outdoor classroom?
Okay, my daughters and I, we went to Cambodia. And we went to actually visit this very poor village there. It's called Samaki village. And we saw the kids just learning outdoors, wherever they were.
Learning outdoors?
Exactly.
So no indoor classroom?
No indoor classroom, because there was no space for indoor classroom. So their classroom was outdoors. Yeah. So I was actually, discussing with my girls, and so they said, "Oh, Ma, you know what? You should actually, walk the talk. Charity begins at home." And
that's right.
And it was a tough thing to do, because I wanted to do it, but at the same time I was thinking of all the other possibilities of the funding. How am I going to convince my neighbors if I want to do it in my porch? And eventually I did it in my front porch. And so, there was like, I think we started off with 10 kids that actually came. Kids I have actually taught them before, and they just wanted a safe space where they can rekindle friendship. You know, it's like a social group.
Can I focus on the fact that it's outdoors? Is there a difference? Does the environment make a difference? I mean, is there a difference in learning indoors and outdoors?
For me personally, I was a very indoor person. Because of my background and my family.
Most people in Malaysia are, you know, you think about how children learn, it's always been indoors, right?
Yes, exactly.
But for formal learning at least.
Exactly. So, but when I saw what happened there, and I saw the kids happier, because there were no boundaries in the classroom, as in you're not confined to a table and a chair.
Okay.
You know? So once again, it is about whoever's teaching them, you need to observe. You need to observe the child and see how this child learns, and how far you want to take what your observation can actually take you to. And I believe this was because of my training in the Montessori education. So I really like her philosophy, because you can actually use it everywhere.
So that comes back to how observant teachers are,
That's
to
right.
how equipped teachers are to recognize the different speeds in which children learn, right? Okay,
Right.
all right. So so you started this outdoor classroom back then. It started as a small project. How has it evolved since?
It's grown now. We have 60 children enrolled. And we have a team of 32 young people who are, you know, volunteers in our program.
So I take it it's moved out of your front porch?
Oh yes, most definitely, most definitely. I was in my front porch for about 8 months, and then a sponsor came along, and the sponsor said, "Okay, we will, you know, sponsor a space for you." But it's all about knocking doors and trying to convince all your sponsors as in why you should be investing in a project like this.
Yes. So what did you tell them? What was the elevator pitch, or how did you convince them that this is important, that this requires funding?
Okay. Parents' testimony and my team members. And my team members are young university students, and they're all from different disciplines of education. And so when their mindsets have been changed, it makes a big difference, because parents are really important in this as well.
Okay.
But if you have someone who is not a parent, someone who is not directly involved in special needs, I think the impact is greater, the impact is bigger, because here we are trying to change mindsets of people.
Right.
And if I have a group of 32 young people, and they are so active on social media, so you can only imagine if they put something out there.
That's right. Yeah.
And
Get the awareness out there, get the word out there. Very quickly before we go to break, I want to ask you, so in this classroom, in your outdoor classroom, so you have children with special needs, and you also have typically developing children together.
Yes.
And you find that they learn best when it's kind of this inclusive setting?
Very much so, because children don't put labels on children. It's the adults who put all these labels sometimes. So when a child sees someone else on a wheelchair, for example, that child is not going to see anything different in that child. The child is just going to think, oh, okay, he's on a wheelchair and he just moves, you know, differently than how I would move. So if you want to do inclusion, early intervention is the best. You know, start them young, expose them, so that when they grow bigger, it doesn't become a stigma. It becomes a way of it just becomes a, you know, a way of life for them.
Yeah, it's accepted, it's
Right.
part of that, right? So
Right.
I really love that. Children don't put labels, it's the adults who do. We're going to take a quick break, Anne, and come back. I'm going to discuss that stigma that Anne mentioned and how to overcome it. Stay tuned to The Future is Female. Welcome back to The Future is Female. I'm Melisa Idris. I'm speaking to Anne Sivanathan. She is an inclusive education activist and a special needs educator, the founder of the Inclusive Outdoor Classroom. And I want to talk a little bit about something you mentioned just before the break about the discrimination, the stigma you said you alluded to. I want to ask you about that. If children with special needs face this? Is this a lived reality for them, that they face stigma and discrimination, perhaps not just from outside the household, but also from within?
Yes, at times. I would not like to say it's a stigma or it's a discrimination. I would say it's lack of information, ignorance.
Ignorance, all right.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that they want to behave this way,
Absolutely.
they don't know how not to.
Exactly.
So is that to do with parents' ignorance? Lack of resources or understanding, identifying that their child is in fact a special needs child?
It's a combination of everything, and it's also sometimes in some families it's denial.
Denial.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, because it's like, I'll give you an example. If you have a child who's like, 3 years old and the child is not speaking just as yet. So if it was during my, grandmother's time, she'll say, oh, so-and-so spoke at the age of 6.
There's a comparison made,
Exactly,
right? That's true.
exactly.
I've heard that before too.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's a feeling of security for the parent maybe. Like, okay, maybe my child will be able to speak at the age of 6 years old or so.
Right.
But the stigma part, I mean, it's getting better now because there's more awareness.
I agree. Perhaps it is getting better. Of perhaps another generation, a generation previous, there was a sense of shame, of embarrassment within families, and they tend to not bring the child out, stay at home and not kind of allow inclusive participation in the world, right?
Yeah.
But it's getting better in your experience?
It is getting better, especially for people who are aware of the situation.
Okay.
But for people who are still ignorant about it, you will still get the stares, you will still get the comments maybe. What bad parents are they? What's wrong with your sister or your brother? So it's the awareness, it's the lack of training to the to people who are not directly linked with special needs. Yeah,
right.
and I've really seen that in my program.
What do you tell them? What do you tell parents who may not have the resources or have the knowledge in the beginning? Because we all begin from a place of ignorance. How do we get equipped to understand what it means to raise a child with special needs, to be part of a community supporting a child with special needs?
Okay, joining a parent support group is very important because it's really inexpensive, or sometimes it's just free.
Are there lots in Malaysia?
There are.
Okay, so
There are.
Facebook, social media, you can find lots of parent support groups.
It's all there. It's all there. But from my experience, it's a very inclusive parent support group. Meaning, if you have a child with Down syndrome, you're going to be joining the group where all families are there with Down syndrome or with autism or with cerebral palsy. So in our program, we have everyone there. So parents become aware of the child's different needs.
Oh, I see.
And the team members also, become aware.
Okay.
Because like if you look at textbooks, okay, and they would tell you, okay, these are what common traits of someone with autism.
Okay.
So if a stranger or a person looks at that and then looks at the child and say, oh, I don't see any traits, what does that mean?
Because every child presents differently,
absolutely,
right? Okay.
Absolutely. So and then there are some people who have hidden disabilities. So what is a hidden disability? So it's very important if you were to do a program or if you were to be in a community. It's good to engage community leaders to actually come and see what your cause is all about and getting them involved, so that it takes a village to build a.
It definitely takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
More a special needs child, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Can I touch a little bit on how on the teacher training, because we talked a little bit about that. You said it's important for teachers to be well equipped with this. What is the landscape right now? Are teachers taught to recognize children with special needs, to adapt to the requirements or the needs of these types of these children?
Well, if you're doing a special needs degree or a special needs diploma, you are actually
it's a
taught about them.
specialized training.
Yeah, it is. It is. But if you're doing a teacher training, they do have a small element there. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
alright.
but to do a degree in special needs, it takes you 4 years, and to do a teacher training course, it also takes you 4 years. So, how much of special needs can you actually cover in a teacher training course, unless you want to go and specialize in that?
Wow. Okay.
So it's two different things altogether.
Is there enough support in terms of teachers with this who are equipped to teach children with special needs in Malaysia? Do we have a large pool of talent?
In my opinion, no. No,
Right.
because I believe we need to focus more on training and retraining, especially on the experiential part of it.
What does that mean?
That means the teachers, if you're going to be learning about special education, you need to be out there. You need to go to special needs centers or play groups, and to see exactly what is happening there, because you cannot get this from a textbook.
Okay.
It's totally different. Yeah.
So and we talked a little bit about inclusive education in the beginning. Does that mean that having typically developing children, say in schools right now, sekolah kebangsaans right now, with special needs children, do you encourage that? Would you encourage that?
Most certainly, yes, provided the teacher knows what to do, and not just have the special needs children there for the sake of just having them there and not knowing what to do with them.
So you mean not to have it as part of just because they're part of the criteria of children in the classroom,
Right.
and then sidelining them?
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly.
Is that the case right now? Are special needs children in Malaysia integrated in public schools?
We have some classes like that, but on certain subjects only.
Meaning, what subjects would that be?
English and maths.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not really sure
Right.
on the things, but in their preschool they are separated.
Oh,
Yeah.
why would that be the case, especially at a younger age?
Yeah, they are in a different classroom altogether in the government schools.
Okay.
So that's the whole thing. Is like, how do you build a gap like that? And so when these kids are bigger, and if you were just to put them in a classroom where kids are not behaving like them in some instances, naturally the child who's behaving differently will not want to be friends with the other person,
Right. Will feel different, will
exactly.
feel excluded, will not feel part of
Absolutely,
the
absolutely.
classroom, right?
Yeah, and that's where mental health issues come in. So it's not the fault of the typically developing child calling the other person names and things like that, because I don't know. Because if I were to behave like that in my home, I'll be told off, or things like that.
Okay.
So it goes back to teacher training.
All right, we're going to take another quick break, but I
Okay.
want to come back and talk about why it's so important to address this at early childhood. So stay tuned to The Future is Female. Welcome back to The Future is Female. I'm Melisa Idris. I'm speaking to Sivanathan, a special needs educator. She is passionate about championing inclusive education. That's what we've been talking about tonight. Now, you mentioned before the break that in early childhood, you're also a committee member of the National Association of Early Childhood Care and Education for Malaysia, which I think is very important, because we want to we're hoping for a situation in the future where there is inclusive education, especially in preschools. Yes, how do we ensure that that happens? That what needs to change, especially in early childhood, early childcare, to allow for inclusive education, where special needs children learn side by side with typically developing children?
Okay, in the government schools, that is not happening just as yet, but in some private kindergartens, they have begun to actually embrace that. And I believe it's the, I would like to say that the teachers are trained to actually take the brave step to actually have different learners in the
Okay,
classroom.
so it's these private operators that are kind of leading the way in ensuring inclusive education.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. Has there been resistance from parents of typically developing children who question whether their children might be, I guess, not paid, that not enough attention is paid to their children? Has there been any kind of feedback from parents in that way?
Yes,
Okay.
a lot. But I don't blame those parents. I don't blame those parents because in their mind, I'm sending my child to school and I want my child to actually learn.
Right.
So if they see their child mimicking a behavior which is not acceptable, and they don't know why such a behavior is being exhibited, so naturally they would want to go back to the school system and say, what's going on? My child is actually coming home screaming or banging her head against the wall and things like that. Okay. And these are sometimes seen in kids with autism.
Right.
So
they mimic some of the behaviors
absolutely.
that they see their friends in early childhood.
Right, right.
What do you say to those parents? How do you allay some of their concerns?
I would use this as a teaching opportunity. I would actually start advocating and teaching them about what this child's special needs is all about. Right. And then breaking it down for them and saying that we all are different learners. So does your child throw a tantrum at home? If your child doesn't want a toy in a mall or something like that, does your child put on a face and things like that? So we all are coping with things differently. It's just that certain behavior sometimes creates a scene. Right. So how do you deal with it? And it goes back to teacher training. Right. If a teacher has got that very good foundation, and I believe that there'll be no problems in that classroom.
It really is. It's about being equipped with the knowledge, right? So the teacher is equipped with the knowledge and the skills, then passes it on to the parents, who then emulates that in the household, and the kids learn as well. And I think it's kind of this ripple effect, isn't it? Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit about inclusive design of preschools, of childcares, of classrooms for children with special needs. How do we ensure that is part of the system? Because what we currently have is often designed for typically developing children. How have you seen that special needs children struggle with the current design of not just the built environment, but with also the curriculum?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have. And the reason why I believe there is no universal design here is because there's no inclusive education just as yet in most places. Is
that a chicken and egg situation? Does one need to come first?
I would say so, because if you look at our Education Act, they say that every child is entitled to go to school.
That's right.
So if that is the case, why are buildings not made accessible for them? Why is it someone, let's just say someone who needs bigger space in the classroom, why are they told to actually sit in a particular place knowing that they need more space? Right. So
the thought behind it is not inclusive.
Yes.
Right? The thought process, perhaps a little bit more thoughtfulness in the design of our classrooms for children with special needs would help them feel more included.
Most definitely, because you must actually think of accessibility, of the colors in the classroom. You don't have something bright, because that will not help the child with certain special needs in terms of learning. Right. And if they do have a meltdown, you would like to take them to a place that is calm, just like us.
So, we've got about a minute and a half left, and I want to ask you, what would you like people watching tonight to understand about the importance of inclusive education? I know it's a lot to ask to be asked to sum down, but what would you like the kind of takeaway message to be about inclusive education?
Looking at the person as the person is, and seeing what you can do to make a difference in that person's life, and then it will really be a lifestyle.
Right.
and the world will be a better place where there will be no stigma, there will be no discrimination and things like that.
We have to live it, right? We have to
exactly.
live. We have to live it. We have
Yeah.
to ensure that it's part of our daily lives,
Right.
and that's how we treat others.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, Anne.
Thank
It's
you,
been such
Melisa.
a pleasure to have you on the show
Thank you.
tonight. Well, I'm Melisa Idris, and you've been watching The Future is Female. I will be back with you same time next week for another episode. Thank you so much for watching tonight. Good night.